Welcome to Unsarkari. We will be covering today the newspaper edition of 3rd of January. To begin with, the state's representatives in the recent meeting with Union Commerce and Industry Minister in the meeting of the Board of Trade have flagged facility and testing gaps. Exporters have said that raw materials have been more expensive than global prices, fluctuating from 15 to 20%. It is not just high tariffs that are hurting exports; costlier raw materials, shortage of testing facilities to ensure products meet global quality standards, and lack of adequate shipping containers are all leading to loss of competitiveness of goods exported. The Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal have have asked for open source suggestions and inputs from various state representatives, the Board of Trade meeting, various state and industry partners and representatives, as well as key central ministries provide Commerce Ministry with specific inputs to boost export and trade. In November, more than 120 representatives provided suggestions on the hurdles they face. Moving on, the state representatives have said that due to various factors, including the US tariffs and other macroeconomic fluctuations in prices, the year 2025 was marked by dampened exports and it has triggered cancellations in orders and delayed payments. And the exporters also fear that these export the downcrease in exports would hurt them, and thus this could very much result in importers moving to India's competitive markets such as Bangladesh, Vietnam, and China. Exports dipped in October 2025 by 19%, but in November they were driven upwards by growth in exports of products that remain outside the tariff net. New Delhi, that is the central government, is pushing for newer markets and has signed three free trade agreements with Oman, New Zealand, and most notably the United Kingdom in the 2025 financial year. The major problems that the exporters also have flagged is tariff and anti-dumping duty imposed by the United States under the Trump regime. Another problem highlighted is that container shortages and lack of testing facilities in the domestic sphere. Lastly, there has been a detrimental access to input material and regulatory cost that is present. So, this very much suggestions and inputs have been provided to the Union Commerce Ministry, and they would see how would the 2026 year would be started off and with a fresh start and with Mr. Trump's remarks over India pushing down Russian oil and somewhat, you know, appeasement by the Indian government to Trump would likely result in a more favorable atmosphere for Indian exports, and these have been very much hurting India. Major chunk of GDP growth has been stagnated by these US tariffs, and these other factors, though structural, can be you know can be resolved through active government support, and thus this has been a difficult year on the Indian government when in January 2025 Mr. Trump was elected, but we are looking forward to a new start in a new year. Moving forward, the central government has marked its very much disappointment over the objectionable use of artificial intelligence grok in the social media app X, taking note of artificial intelligence service grok being abused to generate objectionable pictures and videos of women without their consent. The government has sent a missive to social media platform X, saying that it was not adhering to the country's law, recently the DPDP Act. It has also raised red flags over serious failure in enforcement of safeguards, and it has sought information within 72 hours about technical details relating to Croc's action. This also raises a question of whether user this is a clear-cut uh, user misuse case, or rather, the X corporation or the the owner of Grok AI would also be partially responsible and vicariously liable in this such misuse of this artificial intelligence. This also raises question about safe harbor clauses in the Information Technology Act, and the government is also, considering that the safe harbor must be, somewhat been watershed or somewhat reduced in its making a umbrella safety and distinction to the intermediaries. So this is very egregious and preposterous that artificial intelligence that has been the pioneer of new age of human development and a new future that has been a very detrimental, nuanced, very detrimental and nuanced, derogatory is some to say, uh, uh, an indecent use has been flagged. So it must be important how the government goes with it and how it is considering to regulate AI content on social media. Moving on, worldly wise, Thomas Jefferson has been quoted here. He says, "The care of human life and happiness is the first and only legitimate object of good government." So, this is a very normative statement and utilitarian uh, and libertarian view of the state and the government, that the care of human life and happiness is the first and only legitimate object of good government. So Thomas Jefferson, the foremost founding fathers of the United States and the key makers of the US democracy, has put to view his libertarian and utilitarian views of what are the legitimate goals and objects of a good state or a good government, and human life and happiness are the utmost and primal objectives that has to be sought by the state. Thomas Jefferson, though a slave owner himself, has a great nuanced version of the goodness of the government and utmost nature of human life and happiness. He also is a major propounder of libertarian ideology, which focuses upon a non-interventionist state. Moving on, Mrs. Shefali Khanna has opined upon the energy transition that would be needed in the present Indian renewable sector. She has said that India's renewable journey is no longer constrained by the ability to build clean energy generation capacity. Rather, solar and wind installations have crossed over 180 gigawatts, and renewables have become among the lowest cost sources of new generation. Instead, the transition is constrained by the urgent need for reforms in distribution and market design. So, simply, mm, Ms. Khanna is putting that India has achieved the infrastructure need and the base of what the energy transition and the renewable energy segment and sector have achieved this basic landmark. But the real next goal would be to transition to a distributive and market design phase, that is the demand phase. That is the demand phase of the renewable sector is the need. The supply side has been very much achieved. The infrastructure is developed. The 180 gigawatts capacity has been developed. Now the ultimate goal is that the government and the private industry must must sought to also form an aggregate demand for renewable energy throughout the urban and rural landscape. She has said that there are three challenges to this transition. That is, firstly, distribution reform is a decisive bottleneck. Secondly, the dynamic retail tariffs and smart technologies are key to scaling access to clean and reliable electricity. Thirdly, wholesale market reform is essential both to attract investment and reduce renewable curtailment by improving how power is scheduled and traded across the country. Furthermore, she has said that tariff reform must be paired with smart technologies that allow demand to respond automatically, such as smart thermostats for cooling, smart charging for electric vehicles, and smart plugs and switches for appliance level automation. Thus, a designed demand response can often deliver similar flexibility at lower cost, especially for managing short duration peaks. All in all, Ms. Khanna has opined that India has achieved its supply side infrastructure and thus a need for structured demand and a demand response in the market from the households is a policy endeavor. Moving on, India has recently become the largest producer and exporter of rice, and this has been a remarkable achievement, but with some of drawbacks. Mr. Harish Damodaram has said that it is not easy for farmers to buy into cutting greenhouse gas emissions and other climate goals, especially when this requires investing in new machinery and will result in a yield loss to the farmer. This is very much difficult in a country such like India, where 86% farmers, small or marginal holdings of 2 hectares or less are present. He says that that's where transformative, low effort, high impact agricultural practices must make a difference. And the one practice that he has studied is alternate wetting and drying mechanism. So traditionally, rice farming consists of flooding paddy fields, growing paddy seeds into them. Then this results in a the flooding of the paddy fields results in a development of methogenic methogenic microbes, and which produce methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas with 28 times the global warming potential of CO2. So a much bigger problem than methane. It is much more potent and much more, detrimental to the global climate change. So to an alternative to the traditional practice is alternate wetting and drying mechanism. This the AWD is when paddy fields, that are rice fields, are periodically dried out before reflooding. The idea is to disrupt the anaerobic conditions conducive to methane producing microbes. So there is an on-off mechanism where the paddy fields are flooded and then dried and flooded again, such that the methanogenic microbes do not fully grow, and thus the production of methane can be cut back. These practices, such as AWD, most notably AWD, has very much positive effect on cutting back methane. So also, not only the rice farmers can cut methane, but also through cutting methane they can also make money of it. And how so? They will be verified and location specific reductions in CO2 equivalent of methane, such that can be used as carbon credits for sale in domestic and international markets. The buyers of carbon credits are data center operators, airlines, and other massive energy and water consuming industries. They will purchase these credits from farmers to achieve their net zero carbon targets. So presently in the current market, carbon credits from methane abatement are now trading at least 50 to $25 per ton of CO2 equivalent. So at the rough calculation of 2.5 tons per hectare, a single paddy crop can generate at least $37.5 of carbon credits. That translates to over 3,300 rupees per hectare for a farmer. That is, you know, a very positive and and an endeavor that will also help the planet and simultaneously the farmer himself. So a practice that is pushed by private players such as the German major Bayer with Shell Energy India and Singapore's Temasek owned Gen Zero investment. Also, the government must be also brought in this particular endeavor, and this also has been a proven practice of both climate action and farmer reforms and empowerment. So this is a very positive practice that would be very much important in transforming India and the global world. Moving on, US President Donald Trump has threatened Iran that it must not intervene against the protest that is happening throughout its country, and He has also criticized Iran over its protest crackdown, and similarly, he has said on X that if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. This has drawn sharp reactions from Iranian officials who has warned that US interference would destabilize the region and destroy American interests. So this comes at a time when Mr. Trump has already, violated the sovereignty of Iran by bombing their nuclear facilities. Now, this response coming in the domestic affairs of Iran would be, you know, the violation of its sovereignty. But Mr. Trump and new has ushered in a new era of American imperialism, and nothing much is proven to slow him down. His active rhetoric against Iran and recently Venezuela has resulted in many very sharp reactions from the international community, and this must be, carefully examined. And future holds a very airy laugh that in these 4 years of the Trump government, many things are to happen. Moving on, when the Swachh Bharat mission was launched in 2014, its vision was both simple and transformative to ensure that every household in India had access to a toilet. In just a decade, this vision has become a reality. More than 12 crore household toilets have been built in rural India, and every village in India has declared itself open defecation free. This achievement is remarkable and has improved public health, reduced indignities faced by women and vulnerable groups, and has marked a pivotal turning point in India's development journey. Yes, this success is very much very much pivotal and a remarkable point in India's journey, but this has also opened the next door, the next frontier. The toilets building have been only the starting point. The real challenge lies in managing the resultant fecal waste. In most rural households, septic tanks and pits serve as the primary form of containment of fecal matter. Over time, these fill up and must be desludged at regular intervals. Without safe systems for collection, the gains of ODF movement risk being undermined. So the next challenge of Swachh Bharat mission would be its focus on ODF plus. ODF plus goes beyond toilet construction to ensure the sustainability of outcomes through solid and liquid waste management, behavioral changes, and safe sanitation service chains. So far, nearly 97% of India's total villages have been declared ODF plus, but fecal sludge management remains one of the most critical gaps in the sanitation chain, especially in peri-urban and rural areas. So, article traces the success of Swachh Bharat mission, but with the ongoing development, there is also need for transitioning from the next movement of achieving ODF plus, which is not only toilet construction but rather a structural change in how we manage waste at the gram panchayat grassroots level. There have been very much changes and positive changes and dynamic solution to certain problems. Thus, a need for a model that can be implemented country-wise must be built up, and this has, you know, recasted sanitation with the urban-rural partnership. Moving on, External Affairs Minister Shankar has, in a recent interview, pointed out that India cannot be a good neighbor to a country that supports terrorism. After the Operation Sindoor in 2025, the both the Pakistani and Indian governments have been at a very antagonistic stand against each other, and this is also ushered in a new era of interventionism from other various powerful blocs as such as America and Britain. I'm sorry, China. America and China's intervention into the India-Pakistan conflict has been very much speculated, and Indian government vehemently denies any such involvement. But there have been evidences of Washington and Beijing's intervention in the May affair. Also, Mr. Jaishankar has said that India has a right to defend itself against terrorism. He has been answering questions at a recently IITM Global Research Foundation meeting. He has said that India will exercise the right to defend itself, and how India exercises that right is is to India's has it has to India's. Mr. Jaishankar has also said that India has the right to exercise the right to defense, and how we exercise that right is up to us, and nobody can tell us what we should do or not. Lastly, he flagged that because of Ukraine conflict, there were food shortages, fuel shortages, and also financial crisis. The Indian government has actively helped its neighbors with fuel, food, and fertilizers. And in a sense, we were sharing what we had. So Mr. Jaishankar has made a distinction between what a good neighbor and a bad neighbor is. He has said that India cannot be will only reciprocate good neighborism, and it cannot be a good neighbor to a country that supports terrorism. Its active support for partners such as Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan has been, in a sense, a reciprocal nature of good neighbor policy and partnership. Lastly, today, 2026 marks the 250th independence anniversary of the United States, as well as Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. 1776 was the year when American Independence Declaration was signed, and also Adam Smith's work, An Inquiry into Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nations, was first published. Adam Smith and the American Independence and the United States have a fascinating relationship, and Adam Smith has a very much a landmark has a very landmark, you know, ideological substance into the American hopes and dreams. What America is today is because of active following of Adam Smith's liberalistic and free market policies. While the wealth of nations gave birth to a modern economic thinking, the US independence established to a modern economy. Adam Smith argued that wealth of a nation is determined by the productivity of a nation's resources. The productivity, in turn, depends upon factors like the division of labor, capital accumulation, specialization, freer markets and trade, lesser government role, and pivotal role of institutions. So, Smith's philosophy and the idea of how the modern economy should be was highly popular among the US founding fathers. And this classical theory of economics was very much followed by Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and these founding fathers openly referred to Adam Smith and had very much impact upon them. Jefferson even recommended books to his fellow colleagues, saying that in political economy, I think Smith's Wealth of Nations is the best book extant. The most interesting connection between US founders and Adam Smith comes via Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary. Adam Smith said that the US must transition from ag- an agricultural nation to a post-industrial country, sidestepping the industrial phase. But Alexander Hamilton disagreed with Smith. He said that in his famous report on manufacturers, where he laid down the path for US industrial progress. Both Alexander Hamilton and Adam Smith has a widespread effect on how US history has played out, where Hamilton wrote about the need to give subsidies to industry, implement tariffs, restrict exports, and so on, are very much followed even today. And Adam Smith's liberalistic principles have ushered in new liberal school of economic thought and has also been very pivotal in modern economic history. That would be all for today. Thank you.